And get started. My name is Carlye Rausch, and I'm going to be the host today. I work at Crayons to Classrooms, and I'm the program manager. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we all utilize our volunteers, and then also what we're doing through the COVID-19 situation. So we're going to start with Angela, and she's going to tell us how she utilizes their volunteers, and then also how many volunteers they have on a weekly basis.
So my name is Angela. I'm at a Gift for Teaching in Orlando. So we have about 40 volunteers on average a week that are individuals that come in the morning to stock our store and in the afternoon to run our store. And we have probably on average about 50 people that come from volunteer corporate groups a week, which are usually our prep people. So they're prepping supplies, going through pallets, you know the deal. You don't know what's in a pallet and you have to find out. So we use volunteers for that.
All right, let's move on to Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise Bunker, filling in for Barb Blaylock this morning from Treasures for Teachers in Arizona. And before COVID, we had approximately 100 to 125 regular volunteers a week, and corporate groups on the weekends, usually anywhere from, I'd say 20 to 30 on Saturdays. And now after COVID, after sending a survey out, we have about 25 of our regular week volunteers came in. And we are in the process right now of inviting our corporate volunteers back. And so we have a group coming in, because it's summer, we have a group coming in on this coming June 30th in the afternoon. And then we have a group scheduled for Saturday, 2 groups scheduled for Saturday. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, and Hanna.
Hi there, I'm Hanna Yaegar-Busch, and I realized I spelled my own name wrong. But I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I am with Teachers Treasures. So prior to COVID, we had roughly 100 volunteers per week. We would have a morning crew that would, we'd have one group that would help us stock, and then we'd have one group that would help us bundle and prep things. So, you know, when you get those huge donations of folders, we would have a group come in that would break those down into smaller groups, and that was kind of their role. And then we would have our group every afternoon to help run shopping. So obviously with everything, things have changed much, and it's honestly hard for me to even remember what life was like back then in March. So right now we have about 38 volunteers coming in a week. We just started the first week of June was the first time we had any volunteers back in the building. And we started with just about 2 people at a time. Now I have shifts of 6. So I will have 6 people for 2 hours in the morning. They leave, we do an hour kind of break time to wipe things down and reset. And then we have 6 more. So we're keeping it no more than 6 people interacting at a time. And we're trying really hard to keep like around 10 people in the building at a time. So the way that we engage corporate volunteers, it's kind of sporadic. We don't have them in weekly, which I'm kind of intrigued by that idea. But so we are just now, people are starting to trickle back in to get things set up. But a lot of people we normally worked with are still kind of locked down for a while. So I'm exploring what that's going to look like in the future. So.
Great. So for the next question, let's just, by a show of hands, you guys can just raise your hand. How many of you have done a survey to your standing core volunteers? Okay, good. All 4 of us have. So with the survey, I have a few questions here. What have been some of the items that you have noticed that people who are not returning? Additionally, how many are willing to work on remote projects? And have you heard of any circumstances on how and will they return? And I know that all of us probably are willing to share our survey questions with the participants after the call. So let's go ahead and start with Angela.
So yes, we did do a survey. We were very excited to see that 100% of the volunteers responded that they will be returning. We did not specifically ask, actually, let me back up a little bit. We did ask about their returning, and then we also asked about kind of the circumstances in which they would come back. So we asked, knowing that a gift for teaching will follow CDC guidelines for your safety, are you comfortable with returning? 100% said yes with that. We did receive a lot of comments as well of that they trust our judgment. If we feel like we are taking all the precautions that we need to keep them safe, they will return because they trust us. We didn't ask specifically, under what circumstances, but we did give them a ranking of what was most important to them for safety. So about masks or social distancing, taking their temperature, just a couple of different ones to see. Masks and social distancing were the top two that they cared about. And then we didn't offer and ask any sort of question about remote projects, just because that's not something we really have the capacity to do. It's something we might develop, but something I've seen a lot of the centers do with building kits or making flashcards or things like that are not projects that we do. So we don't really have a remote option for them right now. What was the other question? We'll certainly share the survey if you'd like. And then also some follow-up that we did with them as well.
Great. All right, Louise, would you like to share about your volunteer survey?
Sure. So we sent the survey out and asked them, would they feel comfortable returning right now? I mean, in 2 weeks, basically. And the response we got, we have a pretty elderly population of volunteers, and they were still very concerned. Mostly their kids were concerned for them. And so we got a lot of response of, I'll come back as soon as my kids tell me it's safe to come back, things like that. We did offer them remote projects that they could do. We get a lot of paper donated from Staples and like pallets. And so we've had drive-through giveaways with that when we weren't open, but we're still getting lots of paper. So our volunteers stop by, they pick up a box of legal size paper, and then they fold it in half, and then they put 3 pieces together, and it comes up with a journal that could be a math journal, a spelling journal, an art journal, and then these are for the teachers, and they can take classroom sets of them. And we found that that's been very helpful. We also have, we take in a lot of donations from retired educators and businesses that have excess pencils and pens and things like that. And we feel as though we need to test those pens and markers before they go out to the teachers, because a lot of times that's why they're being donated to us. They're dried out. So we've been sending home boxes of markers and pens to be tested with our volunteers that don't want to appear in person. We do have next door to us, we have a T for T thrift shop where all the proceeds benefit T for T teachers. And they have been very leery about bringing volunteers back and giving them any projects, but they have sent home some projects of sort jewelry because all the jewelry gets tangled. And so they need somebody to untangle it and put bracelets in one Ziploc bag and necklaces and things like that. So there's been projects that we've been able to send remotely. And we just got contacted by Target, our local Target here in Tempe, that did we have anything that they could do? And so they're making journals. We don't even have to send the paper to them. They're going to be making the journals for us because they just are such a big supporter, of us. And I think it's been really important to those people who can't return right now and to stay connected. And The other project that we just sent home and we're seeing how it's going to work out is because we get so many donations from retired teachers, we get a lot of puzzles and games donated. And so we like to have a complete set of, or at least enough that another teacher could play that game. So we've been sending home boxes of games for our volunteers to play and see if all the pieces are there.
Awesome. And Hannah, do you want to share a little bit about your survey and what they've been doing?
So I used Google Forms, which Google Forms and I have been best friends recently. So we also work with a bit of an older population. So I knew going into this that was going to be something that we were going to need to address. Fortunately, I have not had any of my core volunteers. And when I say core, I mean the ones who help us run shopping. None of them have said outright that they're not returning due to COVID. I just got one this morning that she's not returning for other reasons. And I had a little like, no, but it's unrelated. But so the only two that have expressed concerns to me, which is interesting to me, is that they both have family members that have health issues. So they are watching what the CDC and the states are saying very, very carefully. And I'm actually going to do a follow-up with them today and just update the volunteers with, this is what we've put in place so far. This is what you will expect to see when you come in. So really, fortunately right now, we're not really losing anyone due to COVID. The remote project has actually been kind of fun because I've had a lot of our core volunteers, I'm going to reference them a lot, ask me like, can we please, we're bored, can we have something? So we get envelopes donated in huge quantities. So we've been sending envelopes home that we just rubber band 25 together. And that's how we put them on the floor. Same with things like folders. And then we take advantage a lot of Kohl's Cares projects, which is where you send projects to Kohl's affiliates. And if so many people do it for so many hours, you get funding from them. So we have a lot of experience putting together these random little projects, and I came up with these cute little workbooks that it's a lot of folding and stapling and tying and all those cute things. So I think we're going to do a lot more of those kind of things, and they're a little bit of work to put them together, but I think they're worth it because the teachers really like it, and it will keep my volunteer who, she can't come in because her husband her husband's going through chemo. It's going to keep her busy and keep her involved, because especially with working with this older population, they want to be involved with it because this is their tribe, this is their community. So that's something that really came through on the surveys. Even if they can't come in the building, they want to still be involved. I might have some of them make phone calls to sponsors to thank them. Might be something we explore that as well. So doing a lot of thinking outside the box, and the survey was a nice way to kind of drive that and get that started.
Awesome. Well, we did a survey too at Crayons, and we learned that about 50% of our volunteers are not going to be returning just yet, because we started taking volunteers in June. So that was something that was a little bit heart-wrenching a little bit. We were a little bit nervous about it. And we do the journal similar to Louise. We've done those for years, and we have a lot of people that go and take those home. But like Angela, we have a lot of other projects that we can't really send home, and it's been a little bit difficult for the at-home projects. So let's move on to volunteer waivers. I know that this has been a huge question within our community here in Dayton regarding volunteer waivers, and if your volunteer waiver has changed in any way, or if you've had any issues with volunteers signing additional waivers, or if you're still continuing the waiver that you've had previously. So Angela, let's start with you.
So our first step with this process was to reach out to our insurance company and see if on their end they felt that we needed to adjust our waiver in any way. They did not feel that way, so we weren't going to do anything. And then we slowly adapted, especially one of our programs works directly with students, so we wanted to make sure that their parents were in the know of what was going on and could sign off on some additional paperwork. So for us, we've created one document that is a list of safety guidelines that we expect them to adhere to, but it also includes safety guidelines, safety measures that we're taking to ensure their safety. And then an agreement, basically, that they've read that document, they will abide by those rules that they will sign in addition to their normal waiver. As just a general random note, we're also asking that they bring everything already signed with them so that they don't have to, it's just not a process. They have to congregate, sign waivers, use the pens. So that is one of the things that they also sign off that they will bring it with them. But we also are fortunate we have a lawyer on our board, so we are running that by him as well to see, just, you know, do our due diligence and make sure that we are set with that document, because we are looking to hopefully bring volunteers back in 2 weeks. So that'll be something we send out to them.
All right, Louise.
Yeah, we basically did the same as Angela. When we sent the survey out, after the survey was sent, then we sent them another email, our volunteer group, and we asked them at that time to sign up through Sign Up Genius for a time so that we could kind of control who was on property at any given time, and we could limit, like Hanna said, only 6 people, only 4 people in the volunteer room and 4 people in the conference room and 2 people out on the warehouse, things like that. And we included the waiver with the Sign Up Genius along with a COVID safety guidelines that we wanted them to follow, like you must wear a mask. And we did the same thing as Angela. We had, so they could print that off, they could print the waiver off, they could print the guidelines off, they could sign it all ahead of time for when they were ready to return. The only thing that we had to change on the waiver, because our board of directors said you need to limit children that come in to volunteer. We have big support from National Charity League, and they have a large group of junior high girls that attend volunteer opportunities with their moms. And so we thought, oh, that'd be great. Well, our board of directors has decided that they really, if you're no one under the age of 16 right now can volunteer. So that put a little crimp in that relationship that we had with National Charity League. But they still have a pretty good sized group of young ladies who are 16 and older. So we're hoping that we can maintain that relationship. And then we're going to revisit it again after the summer is over, once school starts back up again, if it starts back up again. And we might have to adjust it again when that happens.
Louise, can you clarify why your board made that decision?
Mm-hmm.
We had to make a decision. See, we allow teachers to come shop with, before the virus, before COVID, we allowed teachers to bring their children with them on shopping trips. And so when we had to make adjustments there to not allow children to come in to shop with their parents or with our members, then the board of directors then also suggested that we go across the board with that. And it was basically because they didn't feel comfortable with the research that was out there right now on whether children can get the virus or if they can pass the virus on, or so we had to come up with something, and we're fortunate enough we also have an insurance. Our insurance is on the board of directors, and so is an attorney. And then we had another board member whose relatives had contacted COVID and they were young. So it just kind of set things in motion for us that we just decided that we have to go with our board of directors if we wanted to stay open and if we wanted to have volunteers come back.
That's different, Louise. I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Because we've been utilizing students like
Right.
crazy right now.
I know. I know.
All right. So before we move on to Hannah real quick, if you guys can all send me your volunteer waivers the change after this call, and then we'll get them out to the participants. That's been a question on the chat. Hannah, go ahead.
Yeah, Louise, that's giving me some food for thought because we work with high schoolers, high school sophomores. So that's, again, something maybe we need to talk to our board about. Okay, well, I forgot what our question was. Waivers, right?
Waivers, volunteer waivers.
Okay, sorry, I was so distracted by that. So I am trying to go as paperless as possible. So as I said before, Google Forms has become my best friend. And the way I am doing it is I'm having everybody fill out a Google form for me, which has had hit or miss results anytime you have technology, especially, I say with all love and respect, with an older population. So I will have a paper backup if I need to, but I basically just took our old waiver and transcribed it into Google Forms. And then I did add, I train in martial arts, and I literally stole the waiver that we had to fill out from that and put it in. And it's basically like, you have to sign off below. I will not come in if I've had a fever, and I will blah, 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 blah. So they have to sign their name under everything. And then they have to, I did put something in about you will be required to wear a mask and gloves. And I did have pushback from a volunteer, which was very interesting. And I'm going to have to be a little firm and say, like, this is our policy. You signed off on it. If you don't do it, unfortunately, you cannot volunteer here in person. So I'll keep you posted about that. So for the groups, we work with a lot of, and I know this is a question later, we will work with a lot of individuals with special needs who are coming through life skills programs. I have one general waiver I'm sending out with them that has that kind of thing in it. And I've had a conversation with one of the gentlemen who's the leader of one of these organizations. And my understanding, and again, this is something I might talk to the board about, we're understanding is that they're taking the liability for it. So they're going to have them fill out all those forms. So those forms are not going to come through us, but I am going to have them sign off on what our expectations are. And I will share this. So it's maybe not a perfect form, but it also, the nice thing is it keeps it really organized. So when I have 3 people changing their email addresses, it also just puts it in a nice Excel document for me. So the less paper at Teachers Treasures, the happier we're going to be. That's kind of our policy moving forward here. So
awesome. The next question is regarding sanitation. So what sanitation measures have you all put in place, and what expectations will you have from your volunteers in their role regarding sanitation? So Angela, we'll start with you.
And I saw a question come in asking about gloves. So for us, safety and kind of sanitation measures, everyone is required to wear a face mask. They will be provided gloves for whenever they are handling any of our supplies specifically, which that's what they will be doing the entire time they're there. So they'll pretty much be wearing them the entire time. We're asking that they monitor their own temperature prior to arrival. It's not something we are going to administer or do, but just asking that they monitor that. We've implemented a no handshaking, hugging policy while on our property. And we are just stressing the adherence to social distancing guidelines. And then just general health guidelines that we keep posted of not touching your face and sneezing into your elbow and all the other kind of things that we have posted. In terms of sanitation, we plan to sanitize in between every group that we have, every shift basically. And so we have different stations set up throughout our store with hand sanitizer, wipes, gloves, masks. So if there's anyone who needs anything additionally, but that way everything can be wiped down. We are expecting of our individual volunteers to sanitize on their way out as well. So that is sanitizing the volunteer refrigerator handles and the doorknobs of all of the volunteer workrooms and things like that. But for our groups that come in, that'll just be something our staff will take care of when they leave. Our individuals are used to it being more of a second home for them. So and they just automatically do that anyway. So it's not something huge that we would be asking of them. I think that covers your question.
Yep. All right, Louise, I know that I think you have samples for this, so.
Yeah. Well, everything that Angela said, ditto. And then we've come up with a cleaning schedule. And so this is our cleaning schedule. And I know it's all in reverse, but it basically is the volunteer room, the reception area, the conference room, and that we disinfect the tables, the chairs, that we replace the disinfectant supplies and the snack area. I used to be able to make them cookies and no more. So any snacks that are brought in are prepackaged, and they have been bringing their own snacks. And so now we're trying to decide, okay, do we even want them eating on premises because they have to take their masks off? So we still haven't come up with anything for that yet. But we also have hand sanitizers and the tissues, and then we pick up the trash in between, and they sweep and then mop in between. So we have a morning group from 9:30 to 11:30, and then we have an hour to clean and disinfect everything. And then the afternoon, if we have an afternoon group, they come in. So we have all these individual supplies in well, now it's not disinfected because I've touched it, but we have the supplies that they'll need for the job that they're doing, all disinfected, and then anything they touch goes into another bin, and then we disinfect all of it before the next one comes in.
All right, and Hanna?
So I know our director of operations, David Hobson, kind of gave a little walkthrough about some of the stuff we're going to be setting up in the store, particularly for teacher shopping. He's done a really great job. And that's going to impact the volunteers. So we have a sanitation station. We're going to ask all volunteers, like the second you get in the door, use that hand sanitizer. I'm going to limit how much, wandering around you're going to do. You kind of have your station, and unfortunately you got to kind of stay there. I'm glad Louise brought up the thing about eating, because that's something I've gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on. Right now, one solution we have is we're going to move the fridge. Like, we have a mini fridge we're going to put up at the volunteer check-in area, because volunteers used to be able to go into our little lounge and they could have a snack and grab a cup of coffee and sit down there. But we've decided that we want that to really just be for staff and limit how many people are going there. But Louise, I hadn't even thought about, like, they have to take their masks off. But can we tell them, can we say, like, no, sorry, you're here for 4.5 hours, but you can't have a granola bar if you need it. So that's something that I'm a little on the fence. I think we're going to just really work to keep it very restricted to a certain area. Like, all trash goes in one receptacle. My biggest pet peeve in the entire universe is when people leave half-drunk water bottles around the store. And I'm gonna be really grouchy, and I'm gonna say, like, if you do this, because I have to touch it then, and I'm gonna have to say, we're not gonna have water if you do that, because it's just a safety thing at that point. I wish I'd brought my examples. I left them back at HQ, but we have signs. We're gonna ask after every interaction with teachers when they check out, wipe down your area. We are going to have separators between the volunteers and the teachers, and everything. Just after every interaction, just wipe things down. We will provide gloves for them. We're going to encourage them to change the gloves as much as possible. I have a lovely cleaning schedule myself. I should have brought yours. Actually looks a lot better than mine. But it's going to be just like, you know, when we have these groups in the bundling room, you got to give yourself 15 extra minutes because I need you to wipe everything down, make sure you have everything. We were just talking about this morning that we're going to have the cleanest store we've ever had. But I think we're going to have to do, and if anybody has any wisdom on how to really train and get good habits going, we're going to have to do multiple trainings. I'm not as worried about my core group because at the end of every shift when things are normal, they always wipe stuff down with a Lysol wipe anyways. But, you know, working with these high schoolers and like the corporate volunteers and things, you know, I'm going to have to get mean, and I hate to have to be that person. But yeah, so we're going to have the cleanest store ever, I think. And people aren't going to be able to get up and walk around as much, and no hugging, no hugging. So yeah, we'll keep you updated on that because we're changing a lot and we're still having conversations about it.
And we have, we're doing the sanitation measures just like all of you guys are, with our die cut machines and with teacher shopping, et cetera. One thing that we actually had a lot of pushback from our volunteers the first week that we were open in June for volunteers was the mask wearing. We had a lot of volunteers that said, well, we can just leave. So that was very, very hard, especially when they're our core group that's always been with us. So we actually backed down on the mask wearing. We highly are suggesting it, and most of them are wearing masks, but there are those few that aren't. So we do have that situation, which we want everybody to feel comfortable. So that was kind of our discussion on that. But again, most everybody's wearing masks, and we're keeping the distance as well. The next question is, do you have any volunteers that in your stores currently, which I think we've kind of talked about that. And what does the new normal look like? And are you getting good responses from them when they're in your store? Angela, I know that you don't have volunteers, but go ahead and speak.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say on this part since we have not brought back volunteers yet. You know, you asked kind of what the responses are. When we did the survey, it was probably about a month ago. I don't even know what month we're in, June. When we did the survey about a month ago, those responses were good about them feeling ready to come back whenever we felt we were prepared for that. And just to touch on your masks thing, I'm very surprised by that. 100% of our volunteers said they have their own mask and we would not need to provide them one.
Oh yeah.
And there was only one individual who commented that they would not feel comfortable coming back unless everyone was wearing a mask. Yep. So we kind of had a little bit of the opposite with that. So to be honest, we have no idea what our response is going to be once we reach out to them for scheduling for the first time. We'll kind of see how that goes, because we don't know. And you know, being in Florida, there are a lot of changes, just like there are for some of your other states with a spike in cases. So even though we did take their comfort level about a month ago, that could have significantly changed for individuals. So we don't really know yet, though we don't have any on property at this time. We don't have all of our staff back either.
Good. Yeah, the mask thing. It was hard. Louise, go ahead and talk about.
Our volunteers all are wearing masks, and we've only had 2 volunteers say, no, I'm not coming back because I don't want to wear a mask. And now that Arizona, our whole county is requiring masks, so they might change their mind now. I'm not sure, but we did have them 2 weeks ago, so it's been almost a month, because 2 weeks from that we sent out an email if they wanted to come back, and they needed to sign up on Sign Up Genius, and that's worked out really well because we can control the number that come in on the dates that they can come in. Right now, our weekly volunteers, we're only allowing in Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, morning session or afternoon session. And we've gotten pushback on that because we have the volunteers that want to come back, they want to come back full force. They really want to come back, and they want to come back every day. And so for at least this month of June, we're trying it this way, and it seems to be working. So I'll include that link in and if you want to go check it out, you feel free to do that.
Great, that'd be great, Louise. And then Hanna.
So we've actually had volunteers engaged with us since, I want to say, mid-April. We did, and I'm wondering, Louise, if we stole this idea from you, we did paper pickups outside the store where teachers would drive through. And we did engage volunteers for that, but we kept everybody outside and kind of away from each other. But beginning in June, we started to put together backpacks, and we made 2,500 of these stuffed backpacks that we're going to be distributing optimistically when school opens again end of July, August. And it's been interesting because the majority of volunteers want to come back in full force. You know, like I said, we had one gentleman who did not want to wear a mask and needed to explain to me why he thought masks were not a good idea. And then eventually he went, okay, fine. And, you're always gonna have that one. And then I've actually had more pushback about gloves, which is very odd to me. I don't know if anyone else has a similar, like I've had a couple volunteers not want to wear gloves, whatever. I don't know. And we're just trying to keep it as consistent as we can. But I think it's gonna be very interesting moving forward once the school year actually starts. Right now, summer volunteering always was kind of casual and relaxed for us because a lot of people went out of town or we weren't doing the teacher shopping. So I've been using Sign Up Genius. It's my best friend. And no one's been upset. No one's been angry. We've actually brought in a lot of teacher volunteers, which is very normal for us at this time. I foresee big headaches. I shouldn't put it that way. And challenges to overcome once teacher shopping begins again and we start bringing in more of the volunteer groups we normally work with. Because some of them like to push what was the pushback on gloves? They didn't want to wear them. I don't want to go in too deep. They didn't like the way they felt. They thought that they couldn't work as efficiently without them. They upset arthritis. It was they just didn't want to wear the gloves for whatever reason. You know, everybody's gonna have their little things. But we get she wore the gloves. Other people wore the gloves that didn't want to. But again, it's gonna be very interesting moving forward. So we're still, like I said, I'm still kind of crafting and working things out. But Sign Up Genius is an amazingly good way to kind of organize how many people are coming in at a time. So yeah, new normal.
Awesome. All right. Our next question is related to disabled adults. How many of you guys have disabled adults, and what are you currently hearing from them regarding volunteering? Go ahead, Angela.
So we do work with a couple of groups. And a couple of groups that are not disabled but have limitations of what they can do physically. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to accommodate too many of those physical limitations, at least for the start of the year, because everything that we have that we need done right now is much more physical, a lot more walking, packing, backpacks, just like Hanna. That is a project we're going to be doing, which can't be done sitting down. So we have one group in particular, they're called the Wow Ladies. They come in every month and everything needs to be a seated job. And they are not too sad about it because they aren't really that comfortable right now with coming back anyways. And we have one group through our school district of adults who are developmentally disabled who normally come once a week. But because they're through the school district, they had to cancel anyways. And so we don't know that will be a program that they'll even want to continue.
All right, Louise.
Yes, we deal with mostly, excuse me, our disabled youth. They came from two local high schools. And so since they canceled school, they have not been back, and they can't come back. We have several disabled people that work or volunteer in our thrift shop, and they have not been back. And so we're going to just hope that this virus calms down so that they can return.
Have you touched base with them at all, Louise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we tried to contact the teachers that were responsible for the students. And I got a hold of one group. The other group, I don't know if the email from the schools are not going through right now, but or if they're being blocked from I don't know. We seem to have that issue when we try to contact through our email to a school district. A lot of districts block the addresses, but yes, and we have reached out through the thrift shop. Those two volunteers, we have reached out to them, and they're just waiting until they feel more comfortable in coming back.
Right. Okay, Hanna.
So yeah, we work with a lot of different groups that are life skills programs. A couple are within schools, and then a couple are young adults who have graduated from schools, and they typically are job training programs. And they have actually been very enthusiastic about coming back. We have one group scheduled to come in next Thursday. She was ready. She was honestly ready to come in mid-June. And then we have another group coming in the week after that. We are going to actually start taking donations again, for better or for worse. And they're going to be a big part of taking those in and sorting them and helping with the back door. So these groups, again, they're the ones that we work with are mostly young adults, so they're not as concerned about health risks. We have a couple individuals who have special needs who they typically would come in with a coach that are older, and I luckily have a really close relationship with them. So what I'm actually doing with those individuals and situations is I'm sending stuff for them to work on at home. Their coach comes and picks it up. She had to have been like 50 pounds worth of folders last week to take home and just sit and bundle that way. What's going to be really interesting is the high school groups we work with that are students that have special needs, because they do a lot of our stocking. They actually do the majority of our stocking. And from what Indiana is a little on the fence, they're figuring it out on what we want to do. But I'm anticipating, and this kind of goes into the next question, but I am anticipating losing, because they're not going to we have a high school near us and those students would walk over. And I'm anticipating these schools are not going to want their students out in the community as much. So that's going to leave me with a deficit of people to stock our floors every day. But I think I have been fortunate that these groups have been very responsive to me. But again, I might be singing a different tune in about a month with what the schools are going to do. So.
For us, we have a ton of disabled groups, disabled adults, and all of them we've been in touch with. However, none of them are ready to come back, which, we have the younger students, just like Hanna and Louise, and then we have the older adults as well. We have heard back from one of our schools that's going to be interested in coming back. They just are not there yet, which we aren't either. So we've got a couple more questions, and I know we're running a little bit short on time, but I want to make sure we get through at least the next two. What is your biggest concern or gap that you think will need to be addressed when it comes to volunteer management? And are you going to have enough volunteers? Are your staff going to have to cover? I know, Hanna, you just recently touched on this, so you can continue. Let's go ahead and start with you and continue the conversation that you just had.
So as I was saying, we typically have these high school groups with their students in life skills programs. But they come in and they stock our shelves, or they bundle folders and things for us. And I'm just seeing that we're going to lose that. And I'm either going to have to bring in more corporate groups, more of individuals, or staff is going to have to, which we're a very small staff, so we'll see how that goes over. So that's kind of that morning shift, is getting the store ready. I'm worried I'm not going to have enough people, but we are changing the way that we are shopping. I don't know who's been in our store or is familiar. We used to do tags for every item. Teacher would grab a tag. We're not doing that anymore, and we're moving to an appointment-based shopping. So since we were limiting how many teachers are in the store, not how much product they can take, but we're eliminating a job, which was sorting and maintaining those tags. I actually am at the point where I'm going to have too many volunteers in the afternoon, and I'm going to have to figure out either create new volunteer roles, or we're going to just have to say, like, each day's team is going to have to be smaller. And our teams are like crews, like, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday crew. They're all very loyal to each other, and they're all they like to be there that day with those people. So that's a challenge I'm anticipating is, you know, do I make up a new volunteer position that's not helping with teacher shopping to help, you know, make sure everything's getting sanitized? Because we can't have 6 volunteers where before we could, and now, you know, it's really a 4 volunteer gig. So we're gonna have to see, and that's something again. But you know, if I lose 1 or 2 volunteers, it might work out. I don't thinking positive. So it's a brand new world. Woo!
All right, Angela, let's move back on to you.
You know, so you should send some of those volunteers our way because that is definitely a concern of mine every day, because we are totally changing our process actually with the way we shop. We are not going to open our store at all in the beginning of the school year. And actually in December, we will reassess for 2021, but we are turning to a curbside pickup only. So teachers will place their orders online, volunteers will pack those orders, and then teachers will be notified that they can come pick them up. So we are actually turning to a model where we probably need more volunteers because packing all of those orders are going to be a bit time consuming. We are very fortunate that since we do already have corporate groups every week, we already had an online program, and so volunteers were already packing some orders. This will be to a larger scale, and so that'll be a big project that they'll need to focus on. So unfortunately, that's going to pull away from the time we have to go through all those assorted pallets, Joann's and, you know, Staples, all of those. So our very first primary focus is going to have to be just packing those orders, and as we get the time, because even if we can fill all of our volunteer slots, because the amount of people we can bring in is so much fewer than normal, we will definitely lose some of those people power, some of the hours that we have. We used to take groups up to about 40 at a time. So now, since we're limiting that to about 15, because we have enough space that we can break them all up into smaller groups of 5. On a day where we just have individuals, we're limiting them to only 10 people, since they will be all together in the same area. So we don't, you know, I wish I could see into the future and say that we are going to be A-okay with the number of volunteers that we have, but you know, no matter what, we will make it work, and staff is ready and to jump in where we need them to continue to make it work.
All right, and Louise?
Right now, I mean, it was really difficult. I'd have to say mid-May. I mean, for that whole 6 weeks when we closed down and didn't have any volunteers, it was rough. It was really rough. And we were fortunate enough, we applied and we received the PPP, the Payment Protection Program. So we got that, and all of our, a lot of our corporate donors, they were very, very empathetic with the situation, that having no volunteers really affected how effective we could be. And so they freed up a little bit of money for us so that we could hire a few more people to get ready for the teachers to return. And so that has been very helpful. So yeah, we've had to use staff in volunteer roles because we didn't have the manpower to sort through the donations or get things on the stocking and cleaning. You're right, Hannah. Our warehouse is the cleanest it has ever been, but it still needs to be upkept. I mean, you still have to disinfect and walk through every day with the spray and everything. And so we are limiting the number of volunteers that come in at one time, but we are also limiting the number of teachers that come in. And right now we are limiting that they bring their children. We have gotten some pushback on wearing masks while they shop, not from the volunteers, but from our teachers. And so with health conditions that make it impossible for them to wear a mask, and we have homeschooler teachers that would like to come in. And so we are going to adjust our hours for them and get that approved by the board that maybe they can come, people that have to bring, that homeschool and that need to bring their children with them, that they come for an hour before we open to the public teachers. So and anybody who has a health condition, we're going to make some adjustments in July as well.
Awesome. The next question is, so with the fear of not having enough volunteers, have you all started to look for alternative sources of labor? I know that we've used, like I said, a lot of students, and Louise can't use students. So we have a lot of students right now that are working to get hours for National Honor Society. So that's been super, super helpful since our core group hasn't all come back yet. So Angela, why don't you share with us if you've done that or not yet?
We've not. We're hoping to not have to. But we, throughout the year, occasionally, not even just COVID related, we will hire temporary labor, especially if jobs are specifically more physical than other times. But we have not looked into that for now, and I don't see us needing to look into that right now in the near future. Also, it's just not something we budgeted for, so we'll do everything we can to not have to do that.
Louise?
We've been fortunate. We have court-ordered community service people who they haven't found no other place to volunteer. And so we have taken on in the last week, now we are starting to have them return. And so far, so good. We've always had kind of a core group of volunteers from that need community service. A lot of community college kids that need service hours for classes that they're taking. We're finding that we're hoping that they come back this in August. So we'll just have to stay tuned. I mean, but our community service, court-ordered community service, those volunteers are returning because they need the hours.
Right. Hannah, are you doing anything to get additional labor?
Yeah, so we actually have developed a relationship with I don't know if it's local or if it's nationwide, but it's called TeenWorks. And it helps kids in high school get jobs, and it works on, college readiness and like career readiness. So we have two, I'm calling them interns. I just gave them that title. But we have two high school interns who are over 16. Don't worry, Louise. They're 17. But we have these two wonderful young women who just started 2 weeks ago, and they are just doing, we need random stuff laminated, and we have them, and they wear a mask. And then also a lot of college kids, and that's something because a lot of the college kids who are having wonky schedules, you know, they need hours for certain classes, or their teachers are having them do kind of alternative things. Plus they don't have the health risks and concerns that a lot of our older population do. But yeah, I've been hearing, and I'm going to continue to reach out to the local college students and try to get them in, usually as individuals more so than as groups. But they're good too, because you can make them lift heavy things. So that's, I like people who can lift things. So it's
All right. Well, I think we've touched on most of the questions in some way, shape, or form that we've had. And I haven't seen any additional things come through the chat that we have not answered yet. So let's just end on if you guys are doing anything fun to keep in touch with your volunteers. Angela.
We sent them a video of us missing them, of all of the staff members quarantined in their own houses. We send out emails, and there are certain individuals on the staff who maybe know some of our volunteers a little bit more, just aside from us who work directly with them, who's sending emails and phone calls. And so I think we've just been doing a lot of kind of one-on-one personal, but unfortunately we haven't had any really fun, exciting ways that we've reached out to them. I know some centers are having like contests and other fun things. So I'd love to hear that if people are doing that.
All right, Louise, anything for Arizona?
Well, we kind of have this little competition going on who can make the best face mask. And so our volunteers that are returning are bringing face masks in. And then we also had a teacher bring us in the ear savers that she had made on her 3D printer. And that caused quite the stir with our volunteers. And so they were like, oh, well, I'm just going to have to get me a 3D printer, I guess. Anyway, it's been kind of fun to see them react to each other's face masks and what they've been sewing at home and what the projects that they've been doing at home since COVID has kept them at home. And so we have been sharing that, and through text messaging, through emails and things like that. But it's just been so nice to have them, excuse me, to have them back and to catch up on, you know, what they've been doing. So yeah.
What about you, Hanna?
So we started really strong out of the gate. We did these little, back in April, I hand delivered, Margaret's on here and she helped me, hand delivered little like goodie bags to all of our core volunteers. It was a lot of driving, but it was a great way to get out of the house. And then we were doing weekly Zoom meetings, and that turned into Zoom trivia, which was really fun. And the winner got a pie, because I was baking a lot of pies back in May. And then as we've got rolling and more people are leaving their houses, the Zoom meetings kind of fizzled out. I think we're going to do, again, I know Margaret's on here because I just saw her chat it, but she and I have talked about like Christmas in July Zoom party, or like a big everybody, because we missed everybody's birthdays, you know, like a Zoom birthday party or something. But we really utilized Zoom, and of course not everybody joined us, but I know that the people who did, especially since they're elderly, they really appreciated that like hour-long chat of like, what are you up to? What are you drinking? There was a lot of that kind of thing. And so again, we might do a little care package again at the beginning of school year. It's a lot of energy, but it was totally worth it because it brought everybody, and they're still talking about it. So.
Well, that's awesome. Those are good ideas. Might steal some of those. Well, we all know that our volunteers are like our family, and we know that we need them. And I wish you guys the best of luck with everything and everybody that's on the call. We will share the waivers and anything else any documents that you guys want to share, just send them to me and I will send them out to anybody that is on the call today. And I think that's everything. So we really appreciate everybody being on the Zoom call, and hopefully everybody will have volunteers back soon.